Hello there, welcome to 7 ways to improve your sentences. Let's jump straight into this. Now, the only task a sentence has is to present information. And because this is IELTS, the second task is to score points. But what should be understood first and foremost is that it presents information in a clear way. Okay, so if it sounds nice, that's a bonus. If it's clever, that's an extra bonus. If it scores points, essential, but it has to be understood, because if it's not understood, then the examiner cannot give you points for the other areas, which are your task response, cohesion and coherence, and of course grammatical range and accuracy. So you need to get that absolutely crystal clear. Now I'm going to give you 7 ways to make sure that your sentences will be easy to understand. Okay, and that doesn't mean just simple to write, but it means that they'll be easy to understand, which will which will give you a massive advantage when it comes to writing your essays. So let's have a look at the first way we can do this. Well, let's have a look at long sentences. Long sentences reduce comprehension for readers. The longer the sentence, the greater the chance that the reader will lose attention and will not follow what you're writing. So when I'm correcting, if a sentence is just packed with 3 or 4 ideas, I immediately say separate it, chop it up, and make 2 sentences, each containing maybe 4 ideas. And just to get, when you're starting with this, I usually say 1 idea per sentence. It doesn't have to be like that, but that's a good guide if you're just starting out. Okay. Now, also, when you're writing longer sentences, you are running the risk of making more grammatical errors. So if we put these 2 factors together, that one, we've got more ideas, making the reader have to hold more information in their mind, and second, there's more chance of making a grammatical mistake, then it's clearly going to be a red light or a signal to the examiner that they're not going to be able to understand or comprehend your writing. So just bear that in mind when you're writing, okay? And a good thing to do here is just review your essays that you're writing and just see if there's a sentence that's just going way too long. And in that case, to cut it up. And when I say way too long, perhaps it's over about, 16, 20 words. Okay, if it's around that level, if it's over 16, then generally speaking, it's time to cut it up. Let's see. Next point is also to do with run-on sentences, and this is a run-on sentence. And a run-on sentence is when it takes lots of independent clauses and puts them together without punctuation or conjunction. But it basically just goes on and on and on, and it feels really rambly and it loses cohesion. So, like I said before, it forces the reader to hold lots of information in their mind, and if this is the IELTS examiner, you've got to put yourself in his or her position, and just bear in mind they're going to be looking at your work, and they're going to be looking at maybe 100 other students that time, so you want to make life easier for them. And one way to do this will be just to stop those run-on sentences. So another way we can improve our sentences is if we keep the subjects and the verbs together. And what this basically means is, as it sounds, and because English is quite a flexible language, and it means you can move them around. However, for clarity, it's often better just to keep them together, the subject and the verb. So, let's see, England, together with most other Western European countries in the 18th century undergoing industrialization, transitioned from a largely agrarian society to a more factory-orientated economy. Now, here, the subject is England and the verb is transitioned from. But what we did is, in the middle, we put we separated the subject from the verb, and we said England, together with most other Western European countries in the 18th century undergoing industrialization, transitioned from a largely blah, blah, blah. Now, the correct way to do this, not the correct way, but an easier way, is just to put them together, and that would make the sentence sound like this. England transitioned from a largely agrarian society to a more factory-orientated economy, much like most other Western European countries in the 18th century undergoing industrialization. Okay, and we've just linked them together. England transitioned, and we didn't put that massive chunk of information between them. And it just flowed a lot easier and didn't have to wait until the end of the sentence to hear what England was doing. Okay? Now, I'll give you another example which will probably be easier to implement. And this is what happens very often in English is, like I said before, it's a flexible language, and you can put the reference to time practically anywhere in the sentence. However, if we separate the verb, the subject and the verb, it becomes difficult. I'll give you an example. So, for example, Dubai, in just a few years, has become a global hub for travel and business. That sounds okay. However, if we do this quite often, or if the reference to time is longer, then we can start creating problems. And what I would say is that we move the reference of time to either right at the beginning or right at the end. And this way, you're not only keeping the subject and the verb together, but you're also ensuring that it's at the right position and there's less chance of a mistake. So, not the right position, but just at an easy to read position. So, a good example would be, for example, Dubai has become a global hub for travel and business in just a few years, or in just a few years, for example, Dubai has become a global hub for travel and business. So, if you've got a reference to time, like I said, I think for clarity, you can either stick it at the front or stick it right at the end. Now, the next point is sentences can be heard. Okay, so they're not just related to the eyes, because when you're reading or when you're writing, you're obviously reading it and we're talking to that inner voice, the voice inside your head. So, what I'm trying to say is that it's not only the eyes that participate, the ears also participate. And basically, good writing sounds good when spoken. This is it's a lot trickier to implement, but what you could do here is either get a friend, a native speaker, to read through it, and if they flow, then you know you're onto a winner, you know it's good. But if they're stopping and kind of straining, then just try and highlight the words that they're straining with and see if you can rewrite it into a fashion where it's going to flow. And like I said before, shorter sentences, subject verb together and no run-on sentences. These kind of techniques will definitely help you. And another point that will improve your sentences is variety. So a good way to implement this technique is to make sure that each sentence is different from the last sentence you just wrote. So maybe you can write a very short sentence and then a longer sentence afterwards. Okay? So for example, I'll give you an example which sounds terrible. There are many countries that have banned smoking in public areas and have greatly increased the quality of life of their citizens. There are many other ways to improve a society. A government could reduce taxes and there would be more money for each person. Now just using there are twice in a row, it just makes it boring, and the worst thing is if you're using it right at the beginning, you can't even hide it in the middle of the sentence. So that's another thing. Sentence openings should not be repeated twice in a row. Okay? So once again, when you're reviewing your essay, just check, review it and see that there is not more than one sentence with the same opening, especially if they are next to each other. Now this is really important, and in the sentence guide you'll learn lots of different structures to use, ones that will definitely pick your So I'm just in a new place and it's all a bit crazy. But anyway, in the sentence guide you'll learn lots of different structures which you can use and adapt and then incorporate into your writing. So if you find that you're struggling with a lack of structures, then you can get a lot of them and then just sort of like change the nouns and change the verbs, and immediately your writing improves. And it's just a couple of structures, no, a couple, there's actually more, there's a big range, but you just learn these structures and you'll see a massive improvement. Also, by linking these structures into the essay plan that Sentence Guide has, you will see a big improvement. Now there's one other way that I wanted to tell you about for improving your work, and this is it's just what I've been talking about before, but I'll give you an example of the structures. So the idea here is that you learn one sentence structure inside out, and then, like I said before, you change the nouns or you change the verbs. Okay, and you can only do this maybe once, at a maximum twice per essay, otherwise you're going to be repeating the same structures. The examiner can't give you more points. But if you do this with a full range of different sentences, you've basically got yourself a very high scoring essay. So I'll give you two sentences that you could possibly use. And this is going back to the thing what I said before about mastering a sentence structure. And the tip here, okay, the secret here is just to master one of them, maybe write it out 10 or 20 times, get feedback, and then once you know you've got that sentence structure under complete control, then you can start working on another one. Okay, but here's one of them. Here's the structure we're going to use. One of the most interesting features of put the essay topic and then is blah blah blah. Okay, and then what we're doing here is just mastering the structure. One of the most interesting features of globalization is its ability to bring wealth, blah blah blah. One of the most interesting features of employment law is blah 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 blah. Okay, and just by mastering that structure, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words in a row, perfectly structured, perfect English, and by putting in the essay topic or the IELTS essay topic there, we're on the right track. Okay, And in the sentence guide, there's lots of structures like this, but I tell you exactly where to put them in with regards to your essay. So maybe you'd put this in body paragraph 1 or in your introduction or whatever. Okay, here's another sentence structure. So you can say recent studies from the Pollution Institute in California, okay, or recent studies from the Employment Institute in Glasgow clearly demonstrate the connection between employment law and unemployment in a country, or whatever the essay is about, or whatever your example is about. Okay, but this is another sentence that you could just master and write out about 10 or 20 different versions, just changing the nouns and just adapting it and playing with it until you get the whole sentence under complete control. And once you get that, it's just a matter of learning maybe 10, 11, 12 more sentences like that you've got complete control over. Put them in the right order and you're writing high-scoring essays. Okay? So that technique is called chunking, okay, and it's technique also used for, which I used to use for teaching students to improve their speaking, okay. And by chunking with the speaking sense, what I told them is just using different techniques, different structures to get through the exam. Okay, so maybe in a speaking sense, you could say something like, off the top of my head, I would say my best friend, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so a chunking example there would be off the top of my head. But anyway, we're using the same technique, but we're applying it to sentences. But with sentences, we have to be a little bit sharper and adapt them to the actual essay topic. Okay then, now if you're interested in improving your essays, what I'd strongly recommend is go over to sentenceguide.com and just have a look at the whole process there, and that's the course, and at the moment you can get the reading course for free as well. So I just strongly recommend going over there, and if you haven't signed up already, sign up to IELTSPodcast.com and you get lots more information and very popular tutorials about how you can improve your writing fast, how to boost your scores, and just lots more valuable IELTS tips, writing advice, and basically feedback and improvement if you're stuck in a rut or if you're just stuck at a certain bad level. Okay, my name is Ben Wethington. It's been a pleasure as always. And remember, just send me an email if there's a problem. Okay, all the best and have a fun week.